We're good to go.
Thank you, Connor. Good morning. This is a convening of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, meeting number 533. I'm Jordan Maynard, and I'm serving as interim chair. This meeting is being held remotely, virtually rather, and so we will do a roll call. Good morning, Commissioner O'Brien.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, Commissioner Hill.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, Commissioner Skinner.
Good morning.
And I am, of course, here. Today is September 26, 2024. It's approximately 10:01 a.m. And with that, we have, I believe, 4 sets of meeting minutes. So I'm going to kick it over to Secretary Skinner.
All right, I'll jump right in. I will take all of the minutes together in one motion since we were all present for those meetings, if that's okay. And so, Mr. Chair, I move that the commission approve the minutes from the December 20th, 2022.
Could I just stop for 1 second, Commissioner Skinner? Is the heading of the August 24th accurate? It has you not present for the meeting.
Sorry.
Well, and I have a question.
And you came in part way, right?
I came in
Everyone-
part
yeah.
way, so I may need to on that one.
So did you just say yes to so much as when I was there? And
I think so.
That's right. I apologize. I was looking at the wrong set.
no, I probably threw you because I made you guys hold back on the 20th. So
Okay, so we've got 3 sets where we were all present, December 20th, October 2nd, and November 16th. So I'll take those 3 together. And then I'll do the August 24th, 2023 set. My apologies. I move that the commission approve the minutes from the December 20th, 2022, October 2nd, 2023, and November 16th, 2023 meetings that are included in our packet, subject to any necessary corrections for typographical errors or other non-material matters.
second,
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien.
aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes, 4-0.
Mr. Chair, I move that the commission approve the minutes from the August 24th, 2023 meeting that is included in our packet, subject to any necessary corrections for typographical errors or other non-material matters.
Second,
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien.
aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
I abstain.
And I vote yes, in so much as I was in attendance for the meeting. All right. Is that good, Judy? I'm looking at Judy. All right. Thank you, Secretary Skinner, for those minutes. They were very lengthy, and as I usually say, a good reminder of all the work that we've done over the last year or so.
Yeah, and the August 24th set was so good, I felt like I was there. I didn't even remember that I was clearly.
Oh, and you've been turning those around really, really quickly, so thank you. We've had a lot of time with those. With that, we're going to move to item number 3, and for that, we're going to kick it over to Edie Serpa. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. I do have a few updates for the group today. Thanks. First, quickly, I wanted the commission to know that after some good work from our communications and human resource and IT departments, the Gaming Commission has completed the addition of an internship application portal on our main website. So now users who go there will find a new button where they can click and find information on and apply for internships with the commission, which is good news. The communications team did also do a social media post promoting the opportunity. And we actually got one individual apply for the fall semester. And believe it or not, just yesterday, we received an application for the spring semester. And also, I should note that in addition to the portal, last July, we established a new relationship with the Northeastern University Co-op program. And so we interviewed, selected, and are now hosting 2 6-month co-ops for this term, one in the research and responsible gaming department and one in our finance department. So that's also good news. Broadly, I just want to remind you that for the FY25 budget, we set aside funding that would allow us to host up to 2 co-op students and 2 traditional interns, or really any combination of 4 students on a year-round basis. And to date this year, we're under budget in that category since we haven't had the full slate of 4 students and due to some other adjustments made by the finance team. So with that being said, I think I can now say that the agency has an established internship program and an established co-op program. And if you're inclined, we can move forward on an ongoing basis.
Yay.
Okay.
Not to take Jordan's thunder, but I think we're probably more excited than anybody else.
All right.
Commissioner
I
O'Brien,
appreciate everybody's work in getting that done and getting the portal open.
Well, the Mills and the communication team and the HR team pumped it out, and it looks nice. And we're going to make some enhancements to it as well, so that we can segment the applications a little more specifically to departments. But that's it for that update. For our second update, I wanted to actually turn it over to Mark Vanderlinden of our Research and Responsible Gaming Department. He's going to comment on briefly on a milestone of sorts, I guess, regarding the statewide voluntary self-exclusion program. So go ahead.
Thank you, Dean, and good morning, Chair Maynard and Commissioners. I just, as a plug for the co-op program, we are really pleased with the work of Diana Chow, who is our Northeastern co-op student for at least the next few months. We have her working on a variety of different projects that straddle both research and responsible gaming. So the voluntary self-exclusion program, this is a statewide resource that allows persons to voluntarily exclude themselves from casinos, sports wagering, or both for a predetermined amount of time. It's one means by which persons who wish to control or stop their gambling may do so. In fact, an early evaluation of the Massachusetts Voluntary Self-Exclusion Program signaled that it's an effective intervention to help persons struggling to control their gambling. Participants of the evaluation reported reduced gambling-related problems, including improved mental health and relationship qualities. On Monday, September 16th, we hit a milestone for the program. For the first time, we had over 2,000 people actively enrolled in the program. That doesn't include 709 people who have been benefited from the program and are now removed from the list. It's a program that's been around since day one of Plain Ridge Park Casino opening, and it is a milestone to note. So that's all. Thank you.
that's an amazing milestone. And we know how far the program's come. So congratulations, Director Vanderlinden and your team.
Thank you. Shout out to Long Ban for his work on this program to make sure that it operates smoothly.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, for my final update, I wanted to remind the commission that you are scheduled to do a Community Mitigation Fund grantee visit next Thursday morning. And I wanted to give a brief overview of the plan for that visit. The commission will visit 2 occupational education classes of the Metro Boston Regional Hospitality Consortium. And we will meet with the program directors for the consortium, as well as educators and students involved in the program. The event will be structured in 2 parts. The first is a walking tour and visit to 2 different classrooms. And the second would be a sit-down briefing and discussion. During the walking tour, classroom instruction will be ongoing, and you'll have the opportunity to interact with the educators and the students. And this portion of the event will be a private meeting, meaning it won't be noticed as a public meeting of the commission, And should members of the media be present during this portion, they will only be able to observe the activity and collect B-roll video. No questions. The second half of the schedule, the briefing portion, would be a public meeting of the commission and would be noticed as such, allowing the full commissioner participation. It would include presentations from representative of multiple consortium awardees and comments from some of the students who are enrolled in that program. And finally, if there were media in attendance at the second half at the briefing, we would arrange for separate Q&A and interview opportunities at the event's conclusion. I think this split scenario should work well, allowing the commissioners to first observe and learn about the programs during the tour, and then participate in a robust, hopefully, conversation during the briefing. As usual, the community mitigation team and the communications team have put together a thoughtful and engaging event, I think, and should work out quite well. And I think we have Joe, Mary, Lily, and Mills on the call if you have any questions.
Looking forward to it, Dean.
Commissioner O'Brien.
Just wanting to confirm, are we staggering slightly the 2x2s in the non-public portion? Or will we be holding our questions and comments until the briefing section?
The idea would be to move together as a single group and hold the questions until the end.
Okay, great, thanks.
I'll take this opportunity to thank Joe and Mary and Lily, and to say that to Edie Serpa and Grace and others, that we know how difficult it is when we go on one of these, because we want to ask questions and we want to engage, but we do have the open meeting law to deal with, and we appreciate you operationalizing the process so we can actually engage with those who are giving us the tour in a way that works for everyone. So I appreciate it, Edie Serpa.
Thanks, and thanks, of course, to the team who's putting it together. And that's the end of my updates for today, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Edie Serpa before we move on anything? Well, thank you. Busy. It sounds like you're busy, Dean.
The commission is always busy, everybody.
Amen to that. So we're going to move to item number 4, and I see that Chief Delaney has his mic off. We're going to talk about the proposed FY 2026 Community Mitigation Fund Guidelines. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Today we have for you a presentation on the draft Community Mitigation Fund Guidelines. As part of this, we've also been asked to research what the law and our regulations say regarding surrounding communities, particularly as it relates to the city of Revere. But first, I thought we'd go through the guidelines and then we'd take up that other issue after that. So as we discussed when we were reviewing the policy questions, our intent here was not to make wholesale changes to the guidelines. As you all know, last year we did do a wholesale change and we were really trying to keep more or less status quo. But what we did do was we provided some additional guidance to our applicants in areas where communities had some difficulty in completing their applications. So in your packets, we provided you with a red line copy of the guidelines and a clean copy. I won't go through each and every change that we made in the guidelines, as many of them are pretty minor, but I will touch on some of those areas where we provided some additional guidance to folks. So the first area that we provided additional guidance was around the anti-aid amendment to the Massachusetts Constitution. As I'm sure you all know, that amendment requires that any state funds being expended must be done for a public purpose. So in past years, we've had several applications that have run afoul of this provision, and some of them have been able to work with people to either tweak an application to kind of get around that, or in some cases, we've had to deny applications due to that. So our legal team, we have Jenna Hentoff and Judy Young. They helped us provide some additional language in the guidelines to make things a little bit clearer, hopefully, for our applicants. And we are also encouraging our applicants, if they have anything that looks like it could run afoul of this, to contact us up front and just say, hey, you know, we've got this thing that we want to try to do. What do you guys think of it? So maybe we could head off some of these issues before they become issues. So the next major change was with the distribution of funds to the regions. For this year, we are proposing to transfer funds from Region A to Region B so that we can fund the program at the same level as last year in each of the regions. And of course, we need to do this because of the action the legislature took to repurpose the FY 2025 funds that were supposed to go into the CMF. We reviewed this with our local community mitigation advisory committees, and we also did reach out to our licensees for input on this. And they were all in agreement that it's appropriate given our budget situation. As you might imagine, the folks in Region B were very supportive of it, and the folks in Region A were supportive, understood why we needed to do it, but were certainly a little less supportive of it because it's money coming out of their region. But they all did agree that it was appropriate to do that. And we are proposing, of course, to go back to our original method of fund distribution in subsequent years, assuming that the legislature does restore the funding to the CMF. And of course, that's the money generated in Region A stays in Region A, and the money generated in Region B stays in Region B, which has been, you know, a long time policy of the commission. And that was strongly recommended by all of the local community mitigation advisory committees. And then the last significant change that we made to the guidelines was with respect to vehicle purchases. We have had a lot of requests for vehicles. When we did the policy questions, we asked the commission if they wanted us to develop a policy around this. And I think what we got back from the commission was that we didn't want to create a real hard and fast rule that says these are the only times you can get vehicles. We certainly wanted to have some flexibility. But what we did do was provide some additional guidance around what we're looking for to justify a vehicle purchase, such as, you know, the vehicle, it has to be purchased for a new effort being undertaken by the community. You know, that it can't just be for a replacement of an old vehicle. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to address casino impacts. And then other things like we want to know, you know, what percentage of time the vehicle will be used for addressing the casino impact, and, you know, how far away is it from the casino, and things of that nature that will give us a better idea of exactly what these vehicles are being used for. So those are really the only major changes. What you will see throughout the document, there are many minor changes where we asked for some additional information from our applicants. There were cases last year where some of the applications were a little bit light on documentation, so we're asking for more of that. We are also going to be asking for that in the application forms themselves, so that they really know what it is that they need to submit as they're filling the application form out. So I'm not going to go through each and every one of those, but there are a lot of sort of minor tweaks to the guidelines. So I guess I'll stop here and see if there are any questions or comments before we move on to the discussion around the surrounding communities.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hill?
I think what you put before us is adequate and appropriate. I know a lot of work went into this, and I know that our advisory committees took a hard look at this, both regions. And the fact that they all came to an agreement on what we were proposing, I think, speaks volumes of what we're trying to do this year with what the legislature had done to the program. So as presented today, I have no problem moving forward with the changes that have been proposed.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, just kudos to the regions for realizing the importance of being able to make an adjustment this year on the money and where the money's coming from. It's very appreciated, I'm sure, by everyone who receives these grants.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I guess we can move on to the surrounding community issue. So the commission asked us to research our laws and regulations regarding surrounding communities, particularly as it relates to Revere. And Jenna Hentoff and Judy Young from our legal department have put together a memo that's in your packet that details some of these things. But in essence, the actual designation of surrounding communities was sort of a one-time event that happened at the time of the RFA too. So that avenue seems to be somewhat exhausted. But the other issue was whether or not additional funds could be added to the Revere application, particularly the $200,000 that the other surrounding communities got, but Revere didn't because they were not designated as such. And I'm going to turn it over to Jenna and Judy now to go over some of the details of that and what some of the options are for the commission if they choose to move ahead with this or not.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning.
Good morning, Interim Chair and Commissioners. As Joe indicated, Judy and I have provided you some information regarding the City of Revere and its current status and possible future status. You have a memo in your packet at page 178 with the information that we're going to briefly review today. Basically, as Joe said, the process for obtaining designation as a surrounding community per the Commission statutes and regulations was tied to the application process, which was completed back in 2014. At that time, Revere did not petition to become a surrounding community and was not designated as such. However, based on our review, Revere is eligible to receive funding from the Community Mitigation Fund, which they have historically received, pursuant to the language in the statute at Chapter 23K, Section 61 and 205 CMR 125.014, which indicates that any determination or finding that a town or community is not a surrounding community does not prohibit them from applying for and receiving funds from the Community Mitigation Fund. The information that we provided or that we were asked to provide is in regards to whether the City of Revere is eligible to receive any additional funding, as the current block grant formula does allow for additional funding for host and surrounding communities. As stated, Revere is not a surrounding community, and therefore they're not eligible for funding in that avenue. However, if the Commission is so inclined to provide Revere with any additional funding beyond their whatever their proposed block grant amount is, there are a couple of options. The city is eligible to use the waiver process, which is contained within the guidelines and which the Commission is permitted to create pursuant to 205 CMR 153.021I. They can use that process to apply for additional funds if they have a specific project for which the proposed block grant amount is insufficient. And the other option, based on the Commission's authority under 205 CMR 153.021E, which is to determine the availability and allocation of funding, the Commission does have the option of amending the formula for the block grant program and allow for any additional funds to be provided to geographically adjacent communities and which are not tied to host or surrounding community status. Revere is geographically directly adjacent to Everett, which is the host community, of course. So if the Commission was so inclined to use that option, you could change the formula to allow for it in that fashion. So I will now leave it to the Commission to discuss, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jenna, and thank you, Judy. Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hill.
I really feel bad for the City of Revere that they're in this position and that they've come back, to us for some relief for the community mitigation funds. But as I'm looking at the options that are before us, I do believe that there's an opportunity for the city to come before us under 205 CMR 153.021I, which is the waiver process. I would say that we could leave things the way they are. and that have been proposed to us. And should there be a project that goes above and beyond the funding that's been allocated, that they can come before us, talk to us about the project, as other cities have done, other communities have done. And we can look at waiving the process to get them the funds that they need. We have been very liberal, if you will, when it comes to the waiver process in the past. And I have no reason to believe that we really wouldn't look at these projects hard and come up with, ways to help Revere if that's what they truly need. So my inclination right now would be to leave the process as is. And if there is a project that needs funding that goes above and beyond, that they come before us and look for a waiver.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Skinner, I see your mic's off.
I agree. I couldn't have expressed those sentiments any better.
Feel the same way.
I will say that whether we do, option 1 or 2 that Jenna presented, either way, we see, or I see at least, the logical issue with the fact that you see where Revere touches the city line, and we see that it makes a lot of sense to get more money out there. I think it's up to, I'm going to round up, that we could go another $200,000 or so. If Mayor Keefe and his team and the people of Revere have a project that needs to be funded, I will be the first commissioner to want to fund that project. And it sounds like my fellow commissioners feel the same way. I do think that, if it were me, I would make it permanent ongoing, but I hear consensus on looking at what the project is as it comes and doing that as a waiver. So I'm fine with going along with that for today, but I did want to add my voice in to say that the people of Revere, to me, should not be hamstrung by something that happened many administrations and over a decade ago. In so much that we can legally do something. There's obviously, we can't do anything about the direct payments. That would be a statutory change, it sounds like, but what we can do through the Community Mitigation Fund.
Right. So, Mr. Chair, just to follow up on that, and I've expressed this to the team, which this is a different question too, versus if there's a substantial expansion of Encore, and what does that mean in terms of actually changing status and that sort of thing. So this is not to say if in fact, construction and expansion goes forward. I think that's a fresh conversation. This is just dealing with the facts on the ground as we find them now.
I agree.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd agree with that. At this point, there's, with the East of Broadway development not moving ahead, there's really no particular avenue right today.
And that's on that broader piece we're talking about direct payments and so forth. But the commission is willing to work with you, Revere, on any projects you have through Community Mitigation Fund that fits the law. So that's what I'm hearing from my fellow commissioners.
Okay, well, I think we've got our marching orders on that. So we will proceed with the grant allocations as we have presented them in the guidelines and won't make any changes to that. So I guess if there are no other questions on this, all we really need at this point from the commission is a consensus that we're ready to move ahead and put this out for public comment, which would be our next step. And once we do that, we'll put it out for public comment for a couple of weeks. And it's our intent to bring this back to the commission, hopefully at the first meeting in November for final approval. So if that all happens on time, we should actually be out on the street a little bit earlier than we have been in the past, which is good. So.
Commissioner Skinner?
I say yes. Good to go.
Commissioner Hill's a yes. Commissioner O'Brien and I'm with you. Let's get it out there. Let's get this money out there.
Okay, so yeah, we will need to do a little bit of cleanup on the document before we put it out for public comment. There were a few typos and things in there, but we'll just we'll tidy that out before we get it back out for public comment. Okay, well, that is the end of our report. It looks like you've got a bunch of time back in your day.
Well, thank you, Chief Delaney. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Lily. Commissioner Hill, I know, is a part of the process, and everyone that's on the committees. We appreciate it. We look forward to this grant round. I will take this as my usual plug to say, I think the work that gets done with these dollars is consequential and important. And we're glad that we still have the money this year to do so. And if the legislature entrusts us in a future budget, we will continue to make good use of those funds.
Great, thank you.
All right. So we're going to go to item number 5. And for that, we're going to go to sports wagering. I see Andrew's joined. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, commissioners. Few items from our division for your review today. We'll start on page 180 of your packet with a House Rules revision from BetMGM. This is a rather quick one, as BetMGM was just before us within the last month with more substantial changes. However, they have identified additional language they would like to change, specifically regarding rules around their same game parlays, or SGP. You'll see within the first edit of the red line, they are adding language to their SGP rules stating unless specified otherwise in the specific sports betting rules. And this will be the theme for the 3 sports below for baseball, basketball, and football. Where if a selection within an SGP is canceled or voided, then the wager odds at the time of the bet placement will be recalculated using the remaining open legs of the parlay. However, this only applies to the specific leagues of the MLB, NBA, NFL, and NCAA basketball and football, and those are outlined in the red line rules additions. For all other baseball, basketball, and football leagues, if any leg in an SGP is void or canceled, then the entire SGP is void. The entire parlay will be void. And this last sentence has always been a part of their house rules. If one leg is canceled or voided, then the entire parlay is voided. However, this change benefits the customers, as they would still have a chance at winning their same game parlays, even if one of their selections was voided for those 5 specific leagues. And that is the only change for BetMGM today. I believe we might have Zach Kraus, BetMGM Trading Compliance Analyst, on the meeting if you have any specific questions. However, we have no reservations in approving these changes today. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew and Isaac. Commissioners, do we have any questions? That was no reservations. That's a pretty strong statement.
It's a stolen word from a former colleague.
Commissioner Hill?
Mr. Chairman, do we want to wait for all of these to be presented, or we'll do them individually?
That's up to the commission. How do we feel, commissioners? I'm fine with moving on them individually.
With that said, Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the updates to BetMGM's house rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien?
Aye.
Commissioner Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner?
Aye.
And I vote yes, 4-0. We made it easy on you today, Zach.
Well, not out of the woods yet. Sticking with MGM and beginning on page 184 of your packet, we have a slight clarification change for MGM Springfield's house rules, their retail location on site at the casino. The first change is just additional clarification to their minimum wagers at the sportsbook counter. This initially stemmed from a patron dispute handled by our division, and while the retail counter made a change and posted a sign, their house rules needed updating to reflect this change as well. The only other change here, as you may remember from when we updated their house rules last month, is the removal of language for the minimum length of play for football games. And Commissioner O'Brien, I think you may have pointed out, or rather asked why or how or what was different in the Springfield house rules compared to BetMGM in the last revision. And this was that issue that MGM identified with their kiosks on location. They are working to resolve this issue. However, to avoid any further confusion with the customers, they're seeking to remove this language in the meantime while they work on a fix. And again, this is the only revisions for MGM Springfield, and we still have Zach Kraus to help answer any questions. However, we do recommend the changes for these house rules today. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien, since you raised the question, are you comfortable with where we are here?
I'm comfortable if we're doing this to match the reality on the ground right now, and then my understanding is they're working on the fix. So I think we do need to change the language to match what's going on.
Correct.
Commissioner Skinner?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the updates to MGM Springfield's house rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien?
Aye.
Commissioner Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner?
Aye.
And I vote yes 4-0. So thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you all.
And our third house rule revision comes from Caesars Sportsbook and begins on page 186 of your packet. This revision will have a little more meat to it than the previous two, starting with the red line on page 188. And within their general betting rules, they provided more clarification to the cash out feature. You can also see some grammatical and word choice changes and updates as well in the general betting rules. Specifically, additional language to the cross-sport prop markets. This was a market that Caesars wished to offer recently. However, we requested language be added to their house rules prior to offering those wagers. And this language here is similar to what other operators have in their house rules for these markets as well. Moving down to baseball, they've added 2 new markets related to pitch counts. They've added clarification for the daily grand slam and no-hitter market, and they've also revised their rules for postponement. Basketball has more of a unique change as Caesars prepares for the upcoming basketball seasons. All of the changes for basketball today are actually a removal of specific markets, and you can see those in the red line that has been stricken out. These are just some highly specific markets they will no longer offer on their platform. For football, they revised their NFL weekly specials to provide better clarification for settlement purposes. They've also added an additional market for player touchdown score on drive with the appropriate rule. And they've also added settlement clarification for other markets as well, including kickoff to be a touchback and successful 2-point conversion. Golf has one of the larger edits as Caesars is looking to add several new markets for their customers to wager on throughout what seems to be never-ending golf season. Some of the new markets include forecast winner, where you can predict a specific player to finish first or second, bogey-free round, where you can wager if the specific player will complete a specific round without a bogey or worse, and number of putts on a hole, where you can predict the number of putts for a specific player on a specific hole. All of these new markets listed for golf are comparable to other operators, and nothing from our review stands out as unordinary or something we wouldn't be comfortable with approving. Moving down to the bottom of page 194, the sport of field hockey has been stricken out altogether. It will no longer be offered on Caesars platform. Ice hockey has several new markets available for their customers as Caesars prepares for that upcoming season as well. These markets include the opportunity to predict whether a goal will be scored during the next power play, which team will have the next shot on goal, and which team will win the next face-off. All of these markets are in-game wagering markets. Soccer also has several revisions for settlement clarification purposes, as well as additional markets. The clarification revisions mostly involve instances on wagers on a player who does not start the match, but enters the match at any time. Those wagers will now stand as action. And then most of the newly added markets relate to tournament goals or other statistics, such as team total tournament goals or corner kicks, number of games to go to extra time throughout the tournament, or highest scoring team in the tournament or league. And again, it appears to be a lot of new markets, but we've seen these in other operators' house rules and are comfortable with what Caesars is proposing. Lastly, tennis also has several new additional markets available to their customers. These markets include predicting the total number of aces in a match or most aces in a match, as well as for a specific set. You could also now predict whether there will be a break point played for that specific serve. And that concludes the summary of the changes for Caesars Sportsbook today. We are joined by Caesars VP of Compliance and Licensing, Lisa Rankin, VP of Trading, Craig Mucklow, and Director of Trading Compliance, Tina Spickerman, to help answer any specific questions you may have regarding these changes. However, after an extensive review by our team researching these markets and comparing these new markets and rules to other operators' house rules, we can confirm the revisions meet the requirements of 205 CMR 24702, and we have no reservations with moving forward with these house rule changes today. Sure.
I'm going to kick it over to Commissioner O'Brien. Bet's going to ask something I'm thinking. Commissioner O'Brien.
I have 2 questions. So the first one is, can you give me an example of cross sport prop? And the second one is, I'm curious why field hockey is being removed. Number 2 is probably where you're gonna ask, right? Yeah.
Good morning, Chair Maynard, Commissioners. I can answer the cross-sport one. It's very popular for the Super Bowl. So Kansas City Chiefs, Mahomes passing touchdowns versus LeBron James 3-point attempts. And that way we'll combine a price and it'll be whoever gets the highest number. We can do that. It's usually always around the Super Bowl. We'll try and use every single market we can against whatever the highlights are at that time on the sporting calendar.
Okay.
And the second question, field hockey. Yeah, we just removed that completely.
Can I ask why? I'm thinking about it as I know it is both genders, but mostly female. So I'm curious why it's been dropped.
It was mainly just for the Olympics.
Got it. So is there just not a sort of professional competitive market for field hockey?
Not really, and the handle doesn't generate a lot of interest, unfortunately. And we'd rather focus our attention on other female sports that are more of interest to customers.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. That's,
Mr. Chairman?
yep.
I'm
Commissioner.
just a little curious on why the removal of all the basketball things as well that we see today. What the thought was behind that.
One moment, let me revise. Check the changes.
It's more of a learning question than anything.
Oh, it was just a revision of the markets, Commissioner Hill.
Thank you.
Yeah, many other revisions that Caesars submitted for basketball had green line in their submission. So it was just moving one market from another market and then kind of condensing other markets as well.
I would like to take a bet on if I could just have a full bogey round. I like it if I'm just bogeying every hole. That's a good round for me on the golf. So I won't ask any golf questions rather. Anything else, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hill.
I move that the commission approve the updates to Caesar's House rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and I vote yes 4-0.
Thanks to Caesars for being on so early if you're on Las Vegas time today.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
All right, last item from our division today begins on page 202 of your packet. This is an item that was brought to our attention recently regarding potential confusion within our event catalog. Currently, we do not have a specific carve out for the prohibition of individual collegiate awards listed in the catalog, such as the Heisman Trophy or Naismith Awards. Our catalog identifies the prohibition of wagers dependent on the performance of individual collegiate athletes in section 5 of our event catalog, which is just copied over from our regulations. However, as you can see from the snippet we took from our catalog regarding awards, current language states awards are permitted for all approved leagues and does not specifically state that awards on collegiate athletes are impermissible. We are proposing additional language be added to the event catalog to further prohibit those individual collegiate awards and to avoid confusion. And you can see that proposed language in the second snippet with just that additional section that we've identified as 8A. I should mention that notification was sent out to our operators at launch last year that these markets are not permitted in Massachusetts. Additionally, no operator has offered these markets in Massachusetts. This additional language is solely intended to clear up any potential confusion regarding those awards. And that's all I have for this one. Marked up for a vote, but I'd be happy to help answer any questions you may have.
I think the proposed change aligns with how I view the statute, commissioners.
Yeah, and thank you. You answered my question preemptively, Andrew, whether there had been any betting on it, but it seems like no, but it's worth clarifying. Happy to move if nobody has other comments. I move that the commission amend the official catalog of events and wagers to include the prohibition on wagering on individual collegiate awards as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
And I vote yes 4-0. Thank you, Andrew, for bringing that matter to our attention and for all the matters that you brought to us today. We appreciate the well-briefed presentation, so thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
All right, with that, we're all ready to item number 6. And for that, we're going to kick it over to Councilor Grossman. I saw Carrie joined. And we're going to talk about 205 CMR 219.04. Councilor Grossman.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm going to turn this one right over to Carrie, who is running point on this issue.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. So in your packet, you have proposed amendments to 205 CMR 219.04 related to sports wagering temporary license renewals. That's on page 206 of your packet. Just as a reminder, these amendments are being made to clarify the regulation to align with the Commission's original intent. When you initially promulgated this regulation, you decided to give the IEB 3 years to complete its durable suitability for sports wagering licensees. And if the durable suitability wasn't complete within 3 years, the IEB would need to return to the Commission with a report. However, the regulation as currently written really only gives the IEB 2 years. That's just due to the word choice in the regulation of sports wagering license instead of sports wagering license renewal. So the regulation right now would require an updated report upon application for the 3rd temporary license, which would actually be only the 2nd temporary license renewal. A public hearing was held on these amendments on September 17th. We did not receive any comments, nor have we received any written comments, and we are now seeking approval to file the final regulation with the Secretary of the Commonwealth to finalize the promulgation process.
Thank you, Carrie. Commissioners, any questions? I know that we know you're moving quicker. I'm speaking to the IEB than 3 years because we've already had one that we've reviewed, and we are scheduling others. So with that said, Commissioners, Commissioner Skinner.
Happy to move, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Commission approve the amended small business impact statement and the draft of 205 CMR 219.04 as included in the Commissioner's packet and discussed here today. And further, that staff be authorized to take the steps necessary to file the required documentation with the Secretary of the Commonwealth to finalize the regulation promulgation process.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes 4-0. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, are we good to move forward with item number 7? All right. So for item number 7, we are going to talk to Director Mark Vanderlinden about an update on the Section 97 Player Data Project. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning again. So yes, I'm going to just provide an update on where things stand with this specific project. Section 97 of Chapter 194 of the Acts of 2011 requires that gaming licensees supply the Massachusetts Gaming Commission with data collected from player loyalty programs. In turn, the MGC is required to contract with a research entity to anonymize the data and make the data available for qualified researchers for 3 specific purposes. 1, conduct analyses to develop evidence-based harm minimization strategies. The second, develop evidence-based harm minimization strategies. 3rd, develop evidence-based systems to monitor, detect, intervene in high-risk gambling. In 2014, prior to the commencement of casino operations, the MGC elected to delay the implementation of this project until all Massachusetts casinos were operational due to concerns about competitive disadvantage amongst competitors. That decision didn't stop the research and responsible gaming team from commencing work on this. After the opening of Plainridge Park Casino, but prior to the opening of MGM and Encore Boston Harbor, beginning in 2016 and continuing through 2023, the MGC began preparations for this project by working closely with internal and external stakeholders, researchers, casino properties, and partner agencies. This work included designing a framework for data collection and storage, developing a data dictionary, refining the data use agreement that would facilitate making data available to researchers, and developing policies and procedures that would ensure privacy and security of data in accordance with federal and state laws. Several obstacles, obviously including the global COVID-19 pandemic, have created some delays in this initial approach. However, the MGC research team continues to work internally and externally on solutions that would bring this project to life. Since July of 23, work to consider the various fiscal, technical, legal, and security considerations has taken place to identify a partner to store, anonymize, and make the data available for qualified researchers. We anticipate that the selection of a partner will be finalized and announcement before December 1st, 2024. In fact, just yesterday, we posted an RFI for the data anonymization work. And I expect that our communication team will work with them to release a blog and link to that RFI here shortly. Section 97 is really important. It provides that it will help us to better understand problem gambling, how it progresses, how it remits. It will allow us to create evidence-informed policies and regulations. None of that escapes us. We take that very seriously, but this is a very complex project. And we want to make sure that we do this right. And so we are moving this project forward. There's a lot of work that has been done, and certainly there's more work to be done, but we're confident that this is on track and moving forward.
Commissioners, thank you, Director Vanderlyn. And commissioners, any comments, questions? Commissioner O'Brien?
No, thank you, Mark. I know we've had some conversations about this. And one of the things I think that needs to be emphasized is sort of the complexity of housing the data and what a challenge that has been. Very happy that you guys are in a position to do the RFI and move forward. But I know how many moving parts and how many restarts you've had to do. And so just thank you to the historical team and to you guys for working on this.
Thank you, Commissioner. It is complex. It's an incredibly large data set that we'll be working with. So.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hill.
I too want to offer my thanks to Mark and his team over the last few years. This is a very complex issue, as Commissioner O'Brien has already pointed out. And I think people sometimes forget that COVID-19 was a very harsh reality to the world that changed things and was a roadblock to many things moving forward for 2 to 3 years. We're starting to see it in other fields like education and what a job COVID did on the kids and the students, and we're seeing it in the test results and things of that sort. So the fact that this department, your department, Mark, continue to work through all of this and still can come before us today and say, well, we have an RFI moving forward, I think is miraculous. When you look at all the partners that you have had to work with over the last few years, they've changed. In government, people change, administrations change. So when you get to a certain point and then you get a new administration, as an example, now all of a sudden new people come in, you have to start the whole process all over again. Most agencies would just stop and not continue. You have continued to move through all of that. And today you are coming with some of the fruits of the labor of your division. I sometimes think people forget, I do as a citizen of any state, you know, government doesn't work overnight. It takes time. And if anything I've learned from this agency is that we take our time and we give you the best product available. And when this is all said and done, this is going to be one of the best products put out in America. And I'm just very, very thankful to you and your team and this agency that during those bad times, when those roadblocks were put up, you didn't say, okay, enough is enough. You kept going. And for that, I think the entire commission and this agency is very appreciative of those efforts. So I just wanted to share my thoughts with you on that, Mr. Chairman. This has not been a hard, this has not been an easy process. And again, a mandate that we need to address, and we are addressing.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Skinner, anything to add? I will briefly add, thank you, Commissioner Skinner. I will briefly add that the legislature did have the wisdom to give the Gaming Commission time to set this up. How do we know that? There's no date certain on when this was due, understanding that the casinos would take time to get stood up. And let me remind everyone, the casinos were not here. All three of them were not here 6 years ago, barely over 5 years ago. And so this is still new. We are an infant agency and industry in Massachusetts in the long scheme of things, when you look at other jurisdictions such as Nevada, New Jersey, and others. And so the fact that we're able to do what we do, as Commissioner Hill said, and I won't repeat it because it was very eloquent, is amazing. And so I will say that we don't ever try to hide the ball here at the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. In fact, what we do is we grab the ball and we run with it, and we try to make a good example for the entire country to follow. And so, and that's not seen anywhere as much as it is in Director Vanderlinden's shop, and where we consider ourselves thought leaders in these spaces. So thank you, Director Vanderlinden. Thank you to your team, and thank you for updating us on Section 97. And we look forward to being the group of commissioners that see this project through.
Thank you very much.
All right. With that, are we ready, commissioners, to move on to item number 8? And I will make a brief comment before we start. We did have an update on non-compliance matters that was supposed to go forward. The large venue security task force did invite our team from the IEB and others from the Gaming Commission to attend a meeting today that conflicted against this. We know how important public safety is to the Commonwealth. And so we wanted our IEB members to join that meeting. We think it's good, I think. And so therefore we did trim that down, that section a little bit. But the good news is we do have some business we can deal with, which is the rebrand of the sportsbook at Plainridge Park Casino. And for that, we're going to kick it over to Kara O'Brien. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. We wanted to provide you an update today. PPC is looking to rebrand the retail sportsbook at PPC to ESPN Bet, subject to any regulatory approvals. As you know, Penn has already rebranded the app to ESPN Bet, and accordingly is seeking to do the same with several retail locations, including PPC. There are no substantive changes associated with this name change. It is, again, simply a name change only. From a licensing perspective, we do not believe that there are any specific approvals that are necessary. The memo that begins on page 215 of your packet details the regulation in relation to the licensed area and a beverage license according to 205 CMR 136. And when a change would necessitate commission approval, including materially altering the size, configuration, or use of the licensed area, but a name change does not speak to any of these items. I will also note that PPC does know that they will need to request an update to their internal controls, and they're working with the sports wagering division to process those changes. We're bringing this before you today to see if there's any further information or questions that you have regarding this rebrand.
Thank you. Commissioner Skinner?
Just wondering when the rebrand would take effect. Is that immediately or has it already happened? There's no vote. This isn't up for a vote, so it wasn't being held for today's meeting.
Correct. So there's a certain amount that they were looking for guidance first. And so once we have, whether there's more information necessary, they'll start moving forward on actually changing the name.
Mm-hmm. And the mobile app has already been rebranded, correct?
Correct. Yep.
That happened some time ago. Do you know why the delay, just the gap in time between the mobile app rebranding and the sportsbook, the retail sportsbook?
My understanding is that they weren't entirely sure what, what locations, if any, they were going to look to rebrand. And so now that they've kind of done a analysis, they're looking to move forward with PPC.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? Thank you, Commissioner Skinner, about what kind of guidance are they looking for from us?
Yeah, no, and I think it's not necessarily, I'm bringing this forward out of an abundance of caution. Again, given that, we've worked with legal to look at, are there any changes necessary? And given, they want to make sure that they're proceeding in an orderly fashion. And so we wanted to make sure that if there's any other information that any of you are looking for, that we make sure that happens. So.
Understood. Commissioner O'Brien?
So, yeah, I am in alignment with your analysis, Kara. The only caveat I would put on it is we've, talked about branding in terms of names and things like that. So not knowing what the final product is, whether that's something we would have questions about, or whether that then speaks to a suitability question in terms of branding, those are sort of out there. But to me, that's more potential suitability questions rather than logistics on actually executing a name change. And I'm not indicating I see any issues at all on this, just sort of flagging it more in general.
Great, thank you.
So commissioners, are we okay with Kara sharing this feedback and moving forward? And you have what you need, Kara?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you presenting that to us. And I'm sure that, as is the case with PPC, I'm sure it will be done well when it is done. So, all right. We're at item number 9. And for that, we have a presentation of workforce and vendor diversity audit for the properties. And I'm going to kick it over to ED Serpa to start the conversation, is what I understand.
That's right. Thank you, Chair Maynard, and hello again, commissioners. Just as a quick introduction before we get to the presentation, I wanted to remind you that pursuant to the requirements in Mass General Law, Chapter 23K, Section 15, 15, and 16, it required operators to implement a marketing program and affirmative action program to establish diversity goals for workforce and vendor participation, as you know. And so, being that the commission initiated a workforce and vendor diversity audit of Encore Boston Harbor, MGM Springfield, and Plainridge Park Casino, and that audit was conducted between June of 2023 and August of 2024. And you may remember that last December, the commission received a status update on the audit from Vanessa Sundai, our senior DEI project manager and the audits project manager. And that audit was conducted to evaluate the systems in place to track and report on workforce diversity and to assess the process governing vendor diversity at the operators. So RSM has now presented the commission with some findings, which we'll learn about today. And you should know that these results of the audits have been shared in most cases by RSM and our diversity team with the operators. And in many cases, the recommendations have already been enacted. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, we can turn it over to Duffy Liebner and Clara Ewing of RSM for their presentation.
Happy to follow your lead, ED Serpa. Morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Well, good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Happy to be here. It's been a good and long audit. Happy to give an overview of the results and answer any questions we might have. Just to echo some of the words previously said, we had all three operators were really responsive with the audit, really helpful, really open and transparent. So from our perspective, it was a really smooth audit, and we appreciate that. I'm going to stay at a high level, so feel free to jump in at the pauses and ask anything you might have. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So, as we just heard, the objective was to take a look at the systems in place for capturing, distributing, and reporting diversity-related data in accordance with Chapter 23K, Sections 1515 and 1516, and also their individual diversity goals, the plans that were submitted early on at various times by the operators. So for each operator, we performed on-site visits and interviews regarding vendor and workforce diversity. We toured facilities. We reviewed the systems for tracking and reporting diversity status to the MGC. We also evaluated the criteria and processes for classifying expenditures as qualified spend. We evaluated MBE, WBE, and VBE certifications utilized in vendor diversity spend calculations. We gained an understanding of how each operator integrates diversity, equity, and inclusion into their strategy. We brought in our diversity, equity, inclusion leader for the firm to have those conversations, understand better what those initiatives look like, and how each operator executes those strategies. We gain an understanding of the governance structure in place that helps implement those strategies, and then the training programs, policies, and procedures relevant to diversity, equity, inclusion, including employee onboarding process. So in terms of the capturing, distributing, and reporting piece of this that we tested, we took a sample, obtained the data, tried to recalculate what was reported and match it up with what we were able to obtain and calculate ourselves. So moving on to our observations, just a quick pause here on our risk ratings definitions that you'll see. So obviously risk ratings are pretty subjective, but today you'll see moderate on both observations that we identified for all three operators. So moderate is really risks that we believe should be taken action on to mitigate to an acceptable level within 9 months. And this can be risk to reputation. It's not just a financial risk like you might think. So moving right into Plain Ridge Park Casino and the observations there. These are two, and you're going to hear the same observation for all three operators with some slight difference in nuance. So it might sound similar, or I might summarize a little higher for the next two. So the process to report diversity data to the MGC is very it's manual in the sense where we need to take the data that's exported from the system, transform it slightly to turn it into what is needed for the MGC's reporting. So because of that, because there's some steps involved, there were some inaccuracies that popped up. So for instance, some of the figures in the 2022 diversity figures reported, they included data that wasn't backed up by the system. So it used the manager's knowledge of the individual's demographics or diversity to update the data instead of having something in the system. So that was due to system limitations or inaccuracies. And then the two workbooks that were used for workforce diversity numbers were not retained. And due to the variable nature of the elements, the recalculations weren't feasible for us. And so what I'm saying is we weren't able to recalculate the Q2 and Q4 2022 workforce data, reported, because it's not a snapshot in time and because the system data didn't match actual demographics of the workforce. There was that manual intervention by managers. Now, since this finding was identified, the calculation worksheets have been updated to track all manual adjustments, and there is a review process in place, and all workforce diversity workbooks are archived. So this, in theory, this risk has been mitigated and will be ready for retesting whenever appropriate. Next, we had 3 of 20 sampled vendor certifications that were expired or were not verifiable. So management implemented a tool to track certification expiration dates, verify recertification, and remove vendors from the approved diverse vendor list if recertification has not taken place. No, I was talking quick there. Are there any questions on those two observations? Like I said, they both have been remediated. We haven't tested it, obviously, but in theory, the controls have been improved related to the systems involved in the reporting of both workforce and vendor diversity.
Commissioners, questions about the information on that data and the remediation that Duffy just described? I think we can go on.
Okay, for Encore Boston Harbor, we had the same 2 observations, a little bit different result. So because of the manual nature of the reporting process, we noticed that Q2 2022 WBE spend was swapped with the MBE spend in the quarterly report. So simple manual error. The Q2 and Q4 2022 supplier and manager workforce diversity data included employees who did not disclose their ethnicity in minority classifications, and Q4 2022 included a employee who did not disclose their gender as female. So similar manual intervention there to calculate those, or to come up with those figures for the MGC. Similar to Plain Ridge Park, they implemented a new control so that all manual adjustments are recorded within the workbook to support their review process. And they also implemented a quarterly internal audit of their calculations. For diversity vendor certifications, similar to Plain Ridge, there were 7 of 20 that were expired or not verifiable in the 2022 reporting. They also implemented a tracking system for expiring vendor certifications, including notifying vendors when the certification is expiring, and implementing a quarterly internal audit of diversity calculations completed prior to reporting to MGC. So similar to the recalculations that we did, they're performing before reporting now. Moving on to MGM Springfield, same first finding, manual reporting process led to Q2 2022 workforce diversity reporting, including 3 individuals that accepted offers but never begun working. The vendor diversity workbooks for Q2 and Q4 vendor spend reporting were not retained or archived. So once again, we weren't able to recalculate and get to the same figures that were reported to the MGC in 2022. And in all these cases, when we aren't able to recalculate, we still recalculate to the best of our ability, working with them, performing walk through the data, trying to get as close as possible. And that is how we identified certain individuals and why they may or may not have been included. The management response was to implement segregation of duties between report creator and ultimately now a reviewer. All workbooks are archived on a shared drive and manual adjustments are tracked. Diversity vendor certification. There was one that was expired or not verifiable. And similar to the other two operators, there is a new tracking tool for certification expiration. And the system includes notification to vendors that certification is expiring. Just wanted to call out that at all three operators, diversity and inclusion integration was noted by our DEI specialists in the firm. And there was appropriate governance structures in place to oversee and support that inclusion within the organization. We also noted training programs, policies, and procedures all included elements that support what we heard were priorities for the operators. As part of our review, we identified some opportunities for improvement for the MGC that we had communicated in a separate report. So we thought that there was an opportunity to update the operator diversity plans on a more frequent basis. We also thought there was an opportunity to define and document all the criteria involved in this reporting. So the example is recently hired or terminated employees. What's the definition of that? Should they be included? Should they not be? Or is it okay that it's a judgment-based inclusion element? And then consider collaborating with each operator to define all acceptable MBE, WBE, and VBE certification agencies. So there are a ton of different agencies that can certify a business as an MBE, WBE, or VBE. So within the statute that we looked at, there were a few, but maybe there are some other that would be acceptable. So that is our overall summary. Any questions today?
Commissioners, do we have any questions? Any comments?
I do have just a couple of comments. Duffy, I don't know if you want to take your slide down. Thank you for your presentation.
Of course. Trying my best to.
So I just, while you're doing that, I'll start. I just want to reiterate what Duffy began with, which is that the licensees were incredibly cooperative during this process. It was a fairly lengthy process. It took about a year when it was all said and done, just to get the field review conducted. We ran into a hiccup with MGM relative to the availability of their data due to the cybersecurity incident. So overall, I'm very pleased with the response that we got from the operators. I think one of the challenges here is that we were working with, or the auditors were working with, diversity plans from the licensees dating as far back as 2014. And those were designed and drafted with, and they were geared toward the design and construction phase of the casinos. And one of the takeaways for me is that we should probably update our regulations, which governed that process, to include more of the operational aspect of the casinos and our sports wagering operators, which I think need to be brought into the fold here. I think the commission should consider standardizing the reporting that's required. Right now, it's apples to oranges across the board. We don't have a sense of where goals came from. Some of our operators don't even have goals yet. And we've seen that just during some of the quarterly reporting that has happened. But we should probably plan to take a look at those regulations and update them and ensure that we're communicating clearly with the operators in terms of what the expectation is for what we want to see in the way of diversity, both in the vendor world and the workforce world. So I believe Todd has some comments. I'm actually going to ask him to weigh in on that. But I do want to have our team review these recommendations, specifically the ones that were directed to MGC, and help us understand where we can improve so that we're giving some good guidance to our licensees as they're presenting and maintaining these diversity numbers. Because we all agree that it's very important for them to continue to do, but we want to make sure that we're making it as easy as possible for them to identify those goals. Todd?
Well, thank you, Commissioner Skinner. If I may, before I jump in, I just wanted to piggyback on one thing Dean said and recognize Beniswa for all the great work she's done in bringing this project and driving us to this point. It was a lot of work. Thank you to Duffy and Clara for all of your work, and I know you've worked closely with Beniswa there, and we've done a lot of follow-up since. So I'll just jump right in. There are a couple places in the law and the regulations that this is discussed, and as Commissioner Skinner noted and Duffy mentioned, there is certainly room, of course, to make some adjustments here to bring us into a place where we can drive full compliance here. But anyway, it's largely discussed in section 21, actually, of chapter 23K. That's where all of these things are actually license conditions, and that is set out in section 21. Section 15 talks about contents of the application, which is slightly different, but the language is similar in section 21. And as has been discussed, of course, there are two components here. There's the workforce piece and then the vendor piece, and they're both discussed in separate sections of the statutes and the regulations. Each of the operators were required to submit their goals and their affirmative programs to the commission a number of years ago. And that's the part that Commissioner Skinner has suggested we might update at this juncture, now that we've had the benefit of the full review here. We do have regulations that codify the statutory standards. They're all set out in section 139.04. And again, they're broken up by workforce and then the vendor side. And then, of course, we have the definitions that Duffy referenced before, where we define the key terms here are minority business enterprise, veteran business enterprise, and women business enterprise. And while we do identify there a number of the certifying organizations, of course, there's always space to expand that list. And that's, I think, where we would do it is right here in section 102.02 of our regulations. So ultimately, at the end of the day, if the commission is so inclined, as Commissioner Skinner noted, I think we would probably want to take a step back, bring the regulations forward, look at ways in which we can standardize some of the reporting. As noted, it typically takes place as part of the quarterly reports. That has been a good way to receive the information, but we have never really directed the operators as to precisely how they should calculate each of the figures that get reported to us, and that's one of the recommendations. And we've never, as far as I'm aware, directed the operators to tell us how they calculate each of the numbers. But now that we are certainly more familiar with it, that might be something that we include as well. That as part of the marketing programs they're required to keep, that they include the way in which they go about maintaining the figures, reporting the figures, calculating all of the numbers, and ultimately achieving compliance with these directives. And of course, that would be a good way for us to ensure uniformity across the board as well. So I think this is a great start to the process, and that's how I've looked at it, is just the beginning, really. And I think we're in a good place. And I think it's important just to underscore that we are in a good place here. And I think the audit revealed that there were a lot of good things happening here, and that we're really just looking to polish up this program. So that's, I hope, Commissioner Skinner, that kind of covers what you were inquiring.
It does, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien, I see your mic's off.
So yeah, just building on what Commissioner Skinner and GC Grossman said, if you go back to look at the actual numbers of the licensees, you know, there is a disconnect on some of them. I know Penn originally was putting in for Springfield, right? So they came up with their anticipated numbers for workforce and diversity based on that demographic and geography. And then it was shifted and the numbers didn't change. So when they came up for renewal the first time, there was a conversation about whether we needed to revisit those numbers. They are coming up again for renewal. And I think, again, as part of that process, we should talk about that. That probably applies to everybody, right? You're, 5 years out and plus for virtually all of them at this point. My question, Todd, is reg authority wise, in terms of we've got, the requirements on the vendors for the sports wagering licensees. With a few exceptions, most of them do not have staff in the Commonwealth, and we don't have that same directive in 23N. So what is the extent of our authority in terms of mandating compliance with numbers as opposed to reporting numbers?
That's
and if you don't, I don't mean to put you on the spot like the answer right now, but it's just a question I had in my mind as we're going to go forward with that reg review.
Yeah, excellent question. I think we've largely here focused on the casino side, but I do think we need to expand it into the sports wagering space as well. So I'll take a look at that specifically. I'm not sure I can offer a great answer right now.
Right. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you both. I know Commissioner Skinner and Todd and Denise, you put a lot of work in as well. So thank you to RSM and the team for that.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry for not thanking our own team, Dean, Todd, and Beniswa, who has served as the project manager here. So much appreciation for all the work you've put into this project.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Skinner, and thank you for being part of this project and explaining where we are and where you see the vision for where we're going on this. And so I appreciate that. Beniswa, obviously, Dean, Todd, the RSM team. I will say, just to add my voice, workforce, vendor diversity has changed a lot in the last 10 years. We have a supplier diversity office now in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that didn't exist even a few years ago. And so we want to make sure we keep up with the times. Obviously, Commissioner O'Brien just pointed out that we need to apply it to some other spaces like sports wagering. And so I think let's make sure people know what we expect of them. Let's use our voice to ensure that good things keep going on in the Commonwealth. I think that's a lot of what went on so far, and what RSM just described was the fact that we've had a commission, not just this current commission, but previous commission iterations of the commission, who have been focused on this issue even long before the issue was raised, at the state level and so forth. So we appreciate that. With that said, let's keep moving forward. Commissioner Hill, anything to add?
Nothing to add at this time that hasn't already been said, but a great job done with the report. And this is something that the commission cares very deeply about. So we appreciate all the efforts that went into this and look forward to working with our operators as we move forward.
Anything else from anyone on this subject?
I would just, so I take it, we can take a step back. We can start to prepare some language. I think we all get a sense as to where the commission is coming from on this. And we'll bring it back before you in the near future with some proposed adjustments.
Sounds good, Todd. All right. Well, thank you to RSM. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Duffy. Commissioners, do we have any updates? Do we have any other business that we didn't?
Sorry, I was a little slow on muting. Just really quick update. I talked to Mark about this. There was a Chamber of Commerce opportunity to go and hear from some marketing firms in terms of sort of the changes to data analytics, cookies, the changes at Google in terms of tracking. You know, a lot of acronyms I had to look up on the fly, but really helpful, I thought, in terms of understanding sort of the changes in marketing, but the changes that are going to go on with tracking in general and opt-in versus opt-out. I think they have some more coming up, but I was going to talk to Mark in more depth about it, but probably something that he'll circle around to on us as well, so that we understand as he goes forward with that concept of AI and machine learning and, you know, what we could do to help flag problems. Just a really informative, you know, hour from some specialists and third-party market firms.
That's great. It's also funny. It makes me think Mark got a text from me recently that said, Oprah's talking about AI tonight at 8 o'clock. Poor Mark probably hears from us all the time.
Yeah. So I did go out. I was definitely a fish out of water. I mean, most of these people are their own businesses are in marketing strategies themselves. So I was not speaking their language, but really, really interesting.
It's a fire hose.
Pretty much, yeah.
For all of us, I think.
Yeah.
We're
That was
equipped, though. We're equipped
Yeah.
to handle it. All right. Anything else? Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien, for that. And you can share some of those terms with me. I'm sure I need to learn them myself. Any other business we have that we didn't anticipate? Do we want to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second. Oh,
My apologies.
Hey, Commissioner Skinner got it. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
I'm getting slower as I get older, Commissioner Skinner. Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes 4-0. Everyone enjoy your Thursday.